Well, here we are in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I'm very pleased to be sitting next to my friend and fellow Vietnam veteran that I served with in Vietnam in 1968 and 1969. And that goes back about 50 years, as I recall.
Just about. Right.
And what we're doing here is we are actually getting an oral history of our time together in Vietnam. And as I've tried to tell people, our time in service, our time in Vietnam is like a big puzzle. And each guy is a puzzle part. His story is a puzzle part. And my goal is to get as many of those puzzle parts put together, and then that will make an entire story. It'll make a history, an oral history, meaning we're going to do it on video. And what we're going to do, of course, all of this is going to go to the National Archives. So it will be there forever. And we are going to try to secure funding to have the Wolfhound website where these are going to be for 100 years. What's your date of birth?
7/11, July 11th, 1948.
Okay. And where were you born and raised?
I was born in Detroit, but I was raised in the area around Pontiac, Michigan.
Okay. And did you join or were you drafted?
Oh, I was drafted.
Okay. And how old were you at the time?
That's a good question. Actually, I was 18 because I remember turning 19 at Fort Polk. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. I'm looking at my wife. She'll keep me straight. No, that's not right. I was 19 when I went in the service because at Fort Polk, Louisiana, infantry school, I turned 20 in July. So I was 20. I had a birthday there, and a bunch of my buddies that we were in infantry school with, we went out and played golf that day.
Oh, I'll be darned. So what were you doing at the time you got your greetings letter? Do you remember the day that you got that letter?
Absolutely. I was driving home from work. I was working at a tool and die shop, and I was also going to college at Oakland University. But I was driving my old clunker of a car home in a snowstorm, and that happened to be, and all that was on my mind was I had to get to the store to get Sandy a Valentine's Day card. At least it was on Valentine's Day when I got my greetings and salutations. In fact, I pulled in the driveway, it was real snowy, and I almost got the car stuck, and so I just shut it off and I got out and got the mail, and there I saw the letter, and that was Valentine's Day. So I've always had a special thing about Valentine's Day.
Now, you mentioned you were getting a Valentine for Sandy. Were you married at that time?
No, not at all. Sandy and I were dating.
Was she your girlfriend? Okay, so
Yes,
she was
absolutely,
your girlfriend.
yeah.
Okay.
Sandy and I were dating.
Where did you guys meet?
Well, we went to high school together.
Okay.
When I was a senior at Avondale High School, Sandy was a 10th grader.
Okay.
And so we dated a little bit off and on in high school, but we began dating more than that after I was out of high school. And but it was Valentine's Day of all days.
I want to ask you something.
Okay.
Can you remember how you felt when you read that letter?
Actually, I was totally expecting it because at that time in our country, when I went for my physical in Detroit, which is your I don't know what you would actually call that, your pre-induction physical.
Right.
There were probably at least 100 or 150 guys there that one day, standing in line, waiting to get poked and prodded. And so I'd already come to terms with the fact that, I'm going to get drafted because so many people were. As a matter of fact, in basic training, there were 5 of us from the same high school.
Wow.
5. I had That's including myself. There were 5 of us from Avondale High School. We had grown up together. So that was actually a plus for the separation anxiety that
Oh, yeah,
happens
yeah.
when you're in basic training. You know, it's like,
Were you aware that when you and I got drafted, we probably got drafted on the same day, I wouldn't doubt it. It was the largest draft in the history of the United States that month.
yeah,
That's when they called for the 250,000
oh, yeah. So,
more. And
okay.
so I didn't know it at the time, this is historical information. But yeah, we got caught up in the largest single
Yeah.
draft. Where did you go to basic training?
Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Okay, what can you tell me, what are your memories of basic? What happened when you got off the bus at the reception station?
Well, number one, it was freezing cold. You're in Missouri, and that's like March 18th, 19th, somewhere right in there. It's freezing cold, and every face you look at is someone you've never seen before.
Do you remember how many guys had long hair,
Oh, absolutely.
hippie looking?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Absolutely. Because like the second day of basic training, might be the third day, but anyhow, that's haircut day. And there were all of us standing in line, freezing outside, people going in one at a time. There was 4 chairs in there. And I'll never forget this black guy from Chicago that had this really nice afro. It was gorgeous. And that barber, I watched as he made the passes, and it all came off in one piece. Boom! You heard it hit the floor. It was like, next. So, yeah, everybody's gonna wind up looking the same.
Yeah.
When this day's over,
Yeah, there were guys when I got my hair cut that came out crying. I mean, there were tears in their eyes, and I mean, their hair was everything, I think,
Oh, yeah.
at that point. And so what about the actual basic training? What were they teaching you at basic?
good stuff. I wished that practically every young male in our country could go and do that, could go through basic training, not necessarily inducted into the Army, but it's a situation where you're scared a lot of the times because there's a drill sergeant yelling at you morning, noon, and night. But somewhere along the line, you begin to gain confidence in yourself and trust for the people that are around you. And well, it's a great experience.
And they taught you how to march.
Totally. And yeah.
Physically, the PT brought everybody up to speed. You know, I mean, everybody was in
Absolutely.
pretty darn good shape at the end of basic.
Definitely. I came out of basic weighing like 15, at least 15 pounds more than,
Yep.
and that's only 9 weeks later.
And you bulked up.
I did.
Yeah, you actually. How about AIT? Where did you go to AIT?
Well, the day we graduated from basic, that's about the day that you get your orders as to where you're going. You don't know where you're going it was a Friday. It seems like it was. It could have been midweek. But at least 90% of our company, I believe it was either 3 or 4 buses. They put us on buses an hour or so later, big charter buses, and we were off on the highway, headed for Fort Polk, Louisiana. And they stopped several times. I remember going through Little Rock, Arkansas, a number of places.
Let's back you up a second.
Go ahead.
Did you know what 11 Bravo meant when they called your name and said?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. 11 Bravo, Light Weapons Infantry. My buddy standing right next to me from same high school, right? He got orders to go somewhere to be a truck driver
Oh,
school.
for heaven's sake.
And he wound up going to Germany as a truck driver,
Wow.
you know. And so,
So Fort Polk, what was your impression of Fort Polk?
wow. We got there in the middle of the night, about 2:30 in the morning. That bus ride was probably 12 to 14 hours. That'd be my guess. But when we got to Fort Polk, there's a huge sign across the entryway, kind of a handmade wooden sign all painted up, and it says, "Home, welcome to Fort Polk, home of the combat infantrymen for Vietnam." And we pulled in there, it was total darkness, 2:30 in the morning, and as usual, there was lots of E5 drill sergeants screaming at you to get off that bus, get out here, get in line.
Oh, yeah.
And right away you're going, here we go again.
And so what did they teach you in AIT? A little different than basic.
Totally. Well, you learn a lot about how to read a map, how to know grid coordinates, how to nighttime evasion and so forth. Doing cross-country, 5-10 miles cross-country at night with just 3 people, where you've got a flashlight and you have an objective. And it's, in Fort Polk, it's all swampy, it's hot. By that time, it's June and in July, and so it's hot and muggy, just like what we were gonna wind up being at. And so those nighttime compass courses, you really had to know where you're going and try to get there, because there were rewards for how well you did, and but you practically fired every weapon in the arsenal that the Army had.
You learned how to fire all of them.
Absolutely.
Including Laws rockets.
Yep.
Yep. Did Fort Polk sometime during AIT put on a Army demonstration, a power
They
demonstration?
did. Yes, they did.
I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
Everything.
Unbelievable.
Helicopters, artillery, mortars. A guy'd come up, every weapon. And remember, they had old trucks and old tanks and stuff out there, and man, they were blowing them all to pieces and stuff.
Yes, they did.
I don't know about you, but after that demonstration, you know what I thought? We got some bad stuff here. We can go over there and we're bad guys. You know, we can go over there and get the job done. It made me
Totally.
feel like, whoa, you know, they're not gonna have a chance. That was what I thought then,
Yeah.
of course. So after basic, did you get your little time off before going to Vietnam? Did you get like a 3-week or 4-week?
21 days.
Okay, 21 days. And what did you do during those 21 days?
Well, at the midpoint, somewhere around the 4th or 5th week of training at Fort Polk, I called my girlfriend, and well, we had kept in communication,
Sure.
but I proposed to Sandy over the phone. I proposed to Sandy, and I said, let's get married when I get home from here before I go to Vietnam. And she was all for that. And evidently, her mom and dad were in agreement with that, and my mom and dad. So Sandy's mom and my mom prepared everything. I graduated on Friday and jumped on a plane, and on Saturday morning, Sandy and I got married.
I never heard that. I did not know that story, ever.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
So, well, the thing of it is in my mind, you know, you don't think you're gonna do that well over there, but the life insurance policy was $50,000. And I thought, what better person to get that than her, so she can have a really good life and get situated.
Sure.
And so Saturday morning at noon, we were married and we had a 21-day honeymoon.
And, you know, little did you know at that time, Sandy, you almost received that check on more than one occasion. No, if his thinking was the life insurance, you put that to the test more than a couple of times.
Yeah.
So, good thinking.
Where did you go on your honeymoon?
We drove all over Michigan. We went to the UP #1 because there's a lot of neat things to see up. You go across the Mackinac Bridge, #1, world's longest suspension bridge at the time, from the lower peninsula to the upper peninsula. And there's a number of things to see up there, but we were gone probably about a week or so, 8 or 9 days. I didn't have a car at the time. Sandy's dad loaned us his Bonneville. He had a
Oh, wow.
64 Bonneville convertible.
Wow.
And it had white leather interior, air conditioning, and he said, "Robert, here's the keys. Have a great honeymoon." And it even had a special radio in it. So
So when did you step foot in Vietnam?
it would have been it was August 17th or 18th. I'm not quite sure.
Okay. They opened the door of the plane. You got off the plane. Oh, I'm going to get to that.
Yeah. Okay.
When you stepped foot in Vietnam, what was your first impression?
It was very surreal because the heat, humidity, and the smell in the air was like standing next to a huge landfill. You can smell it 3 miles before you get to the landfill, but standing right there. So it occurs to you, this is why they've been training me in Fort Polk to get
But
used
they
to
never
this.
mentioned that.
No, not at all. It was like total shock and nice to get off the airplane
Sure.
after a long time in the air, but it's like you're in a completely different world.
Yeah. So you flew into Benoit, and then they took us to Long Binh.
Correct.
What was your impression when we got to the? I can't remember exactly. I think they called it the replacement center.
90th replacement.
Okay.
90th replacement.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was? Did you go through the normal? Hurry up and wait, and go to the bleachers 2 times a day, and wait for your. We were in the bleachers together.
We had to.
We
I never even thought about
Yeah, we were in the-
We had to.
we were in the bleachers together.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know about you, but I remember that they were always trying to find somebody to do the details. And I got real good at hiding. When we weren't in the bleachers, I found places to be where, they couldn't pick me up and make me go do something I didn't want to do. But, so then finally, on that day, you and I not knowing each other, our names were called.
Sure.
Do you remember, the guy called your name and he said 25th Infantry Division, Charlie Company, Wolfhounds. I didn't have a clue. Did you have a clue what we were getting into or where we were going?
The interesting part was, for some reason, I kept running into guys that were going the other way. They were there, had been in country for a year, and were leaving in a day,
Yeah.
maybe even that afternoon. And those guys seemed to find a lot of entertainment telling guys like you and I what it was like, or keep your head down. And I bet you I ran into at least 3 or 4 people that said, just hope and pray you don't go to the 25th Infantry Division. And I said, why? Well, if you go there, don't go, get out of going to the Wolfhounds. Don't belong to the Wolfhounds because you'll regret it. And I said, what's the Wolfhounds? And they said, the busiest group over there.
Yeah,
Out of that division.
I'll never forget the black guy, sergeant that was reading our names off. When he handed me my orders, he goes, Wolfhounds, I feel sorry for you.
Yes.
And gave me the paper and said, remember, go down so far and there's deuce and a halves, and they'll direct you on which one to get on.
Yeah.
My last thought is I feel sorry for you.
Huh.
What did that, and you're thinking, what does that mean? Well, we soon found out, same thing.
Yeah.
Guys telling you, don't go to the Wolfhounds. And so we were famous before we were famous. That unit was
Absolutely.
very famous. So when we got on that truck that day, and what was your impression when they put us in the back of that deuce and a half and we threw our bags in there, that there was a driver of the truck, there was a mount for a machine gun on the roof, but no machine gun, and one guy riding co-pilot there with an M16, and that was it. And then they said, oh, by the way, we might get ambushed today.
Yes. Except,
I felt like, and we don't have any weapons. Remember,
Right. Oh, yeah.
we had nothing.
my memory's not that great about that day, but I swear that I was put in a C-123 Caribou at the airport, and a bunch of us, we flew into Coochie.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, we flew into Coochie, Coochie Base Camp, that's the big base camp for the 25th Infantry Division. It's 3 miles in diameter, at least 2 or 3 miles in diameter. Very large Army installation. And the C-123 is a very noisy, high-wing aircraft. And we saw, I remember the turn the guy made. The aircraft's very maneuverable. And he explained to us what he was going to do, that they make a sharp turn and drop altitude really fast so that they don't receive any incoming fire from outside. So they drop really fast and go, this plane is going down. And just at the right time, I mean, he just flared that thing and put us down on the runway. So I went there in a C-123.
Okay. And then we got our gear in the supply room. We actually got issued a weapon. And then they told us we were gonna go out to a place called Fire Support Base Crockett.
Right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And 4 of us, you and I and Ray and Russ, were the 4 guys that walked into that Crockett together.
That's true.
And all they told us is when you get there, look for a guy named Glover, because he's gonna be your platoon sergeant. And when we got in there, of course, we didn't know where to go, and we asked somebody, and they said, see that guy sitting over there in his underwear, sitting on the sandbag writing a letter? That's Glover. And walked up to him, said, we're supposed to ask for you. And he was that was the most uninterested looking, I mean, he looked at us as if, oh boy. And he looked at Russ and I and he said, see over on the wire over there, that half round that's upside down? You 2 guys go over there and you tip it up and start filling sandbags. You and Ray, you go over to the bunker that's Ed Rambo was on,
Okay.
and that was next to us. And so you guys went over there, and we just started filling sandbags and making, covering the half round.
Sure.
So that's where we lived, and then you guys lived in and I'm sure you'll remember this. The one thing they didn't tell us is, it was in the monsoon season. They never said anything about, if you're on the ground anywhere, you're gonna probably drown. And you guys were in that bunker and it filled up with water the first night. And Russ and I were in the half round and I woke up and the water was up almost to my ears. And when we got out, Joe Wascom and Lee Ketchum were standing out there laughing uproariously. Because we were the new guys. And Joe says, you know what, do yourself a favor, go over to the artillery guys and get some of those ammo boxes and put down on the ground and then lay on, that'll keep you up off the water. But that was welcome to Vietnam.
Yeah.
And then what do you remember when we got to Crockett? What was some of the first missions we did? What did they have us doing?
Well, the thing that stands out in my mind, I don't think we had been there 2 days. Oh, wait a minute, back up one time. The first thing that I had to do was they ran an ambush that night out of Crockett Fire Base. And I was included, and I went, oh, great. My first chance to go out of the wire, and it's gonna be in the dark. And when we got out to the place where we were gonna set up for ambush, that first time out in the bush was with the guy that you talk about. He was really short timer at that time.
Freddie Hanna.
No, not him. It's the. Anyhow, two very experienced people. We'll talk about that some other time. Two very experienced guys and me. We were the rear security for the ambush, which maybe had 6 or 7 people.
Glover was one of them, because he was the one taking us out.
Well, but I got put in the back with Willie. What's the name, John? His name is Willie.
Willie Williams?
Yeah,
Yeah.
not Sugar Bear.
No. But we were the rear security, and I went, oh, I sure would rather be up there wherever those guys are with 7, 8, or 9 guys.
Sure.
They had me in the rear security, and those guys, I think they pulled a fast one on me. Like in the middle of the night, we got movement.
Oh, man.
And so I think they were really trying to see what I would do. Because I don't think, even afterwards, even then I'm going, well, after the next morning I thought, I know what they were doing. They were testing me to see what I would do. And evidently I passed, and I asked them after 4 or 5 minutes went by, goes, why did we just let him walk by? Why did we let him walk by? And they explained to me, we're not gonna make contact with those guys because there could be 20 of them, 20 VC behind them. That's why we let them go.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they explained to me, but they were two very experienced
Yeah.
guys and I was the newbie. Yes.
Go ahead.
The big one was like either, we'd only been there like 2 days or 3 days. And they come around screaming, everybody saddle up. It was sort of a day off, we were
Yep.
trying to close out and whatever. And they were screaming, saddle up, get all your stuff on, get out to the LZ. The 101st Airborne's in trouble. And that was the event that we went on where there were the 101st and maybe another unit, or at least one company, the 101st, had perhaps 200 VC, if not more, trapped in a large village.
Mm-hmm.
That was about the 3rd day we were there.
And we were a blocking force.
We were a blocking force. And so were a bunch of other tin ship lifts that came in to try to
Yeah,
completely surround that village. That was a big one.
yeah.
'Cause we didn't know where we were going.
Yeah.
We hadn't been,
And the worst thing was, we didn't know what to do.
no.
I mean, we hadn't actually been able to be taught, or nobody had time. And that, I remember that night specifically.
Yeah.
Because we were in the rice paddies in the water,
Yep.
and they had snipers at the edge of the village there. And when somebody get out of the water and want to get, because you're in the water, it's cold. The minute somebody would get up on the berm, boom, there'd be one single round and hit the berm, and then they'd get back off like turtles getting on a log and then
Right.
jumping back
Yeah.
off again. And it made for a real miserable night. That's another welcome to Vietnam deal.
Oh, it was a very miserable night.
So what job did you have when you first joined the platoon? What did they have you do?
I was just a rifleman
Okay.
at that time, and we were getting used to how things work. And thank goodness I was a small guy because I didn't wind up having to carry M60 machine gun or a bunch of duper rounds for the grenade launcher, big huge bag that there's no way.
Rucksack.
Rucksack, yeah.
So when did you experience your first firefight? I guess for a lack of a better term, when was the first time you got bullets shot at you?
Well, the night that we're talking about, there were plenty around. That night was very unusual. The VC had the whole thing planned out pretty well because we had a C-47 overhead, which is a C-47 twin engine. It was like a spooky, was dropping flares.
That's right.
Big, huge flares all night long. So you felt like, well, if those guys are coming out of there, at least we're going to have a chance on seeing something. But like at 2 o'clock and Spooky would leave every so often, and they'd bring another one on station. But there was a lull, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and you heard the engines fade away, and he was gone. And that's when they decided to come out of that village en masse. And there were people, the way I remember it, there were VC behind us shooting at us because we were up and starting to maybe make some fire at this big, large group coming out. Thank goodness it wasn't in our section of the line, it was over a ways. But you could see that it was like daylight when that first illumination flare went off again. You went, my gosh, it's a swarm of bees coming out of there, firing and tracers flying everywhere. But from behind us, we were receiving rounds from behind us. I heard them.
Automatic weapons.
Yes, keeping us down from behind us. I went, how did they pull that off?
Your
They're behind.
memory is perfectly accurate because they did have a couple of guys behind us.
Yeah, I was like, how did that happen? What do you do now? We're laying against the berm looking back this way. It's going, where's that fire coming from?
Yep. As a matter of fact, that night looked so bad
Yeah.
that Sergeant Glover turned to Willie Williams and Paul Naso and said, guys, this is it. And he said, when they get to come, when they're gonna run over the top of us, because they were on the left flank, they were the ones on the total left flank. He said, Willie, I want you to lay down. Paul, I want you to lay on top of him, and I'm gonna lay on top of you.
I never heard that story
Yeah,
before.
and so if Glover thought this was the end of the line, you knew how bad it was. I mean, that was a very bad night.
And that's the famous words, human wave.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I was gonna ask, when, I get to sit in on all these, I've been through 40 plus of them so far.
Okay.
First time I've heard some of these accounts, and it's very, very
I know.
amazing.
Sure.
The way you're recollecting, can you let me in on a little bit of the fear factor? Because I get when you're saying, man, where are these, but you're a little guy, you're new, you guys don't know what you're doing. It didn't sound like you were wanting to have the Batman outfit on that night. What emotions, what was going through your head?
When we got there, it was the middle of the day. And that's the first time that new guys have ever seen Cobra gunships working out right above you, firing into the village. They're everywhere in the air. There's rockets going into that village and this and that. And so you're seeing all of this. And it's sort of like a movie because we were near a path, like a well-beaten ox cart path coming out of that village that went right by where we were. And there were civilians streaming out of that village, running. It's like what you see on a movie, like with whatever, and children, mothers dragging children and stuff, and all these gunships working out like mad. And that's the first time I know I was with Charlie Hacker, and this little boy came running up that road, and he had a hole in his chest that was so huge. I'm going, how? You want to go help them, but you don't even know what to do. They're just streaming by in vast numbers. And that little kid, I don't know how he was actually running, just because the total fear, just mass hysteria. And seeing that, I said to myself, this is really real. It's like it struck you like, oh my God, this is horror. This is war.
Yep.
But, and I'll add one thing to you were asking me about my emotions. I prayed probably 2 or 3 times that day, even before night got there. I said, Lord, if you only get me through this, if you only get me out of here, I'll serve you the rest of my life.
And that was early on. That was the first weekend.
Third day, maybe fourth day.
Did you keep your promise?
Absolutely,
So you're serving him today?
absolutely.
Wow, amazing.
So just for the historical record,
Wow.
that village was called Dodge City West.
Yeah. We wound up there again.
We did. But anyway, just for the record,
Yes.
that's where we were at. Do you remember the first time one of the guys got hurt or killed?
First time. No, I remember, I don't know, you tell me yours.
Well, I think for sure was on an ambush. And we popped an ambush, and I think it was at the laterite pits. Remember the laterite?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, and we went out there a lot. And I kept thinking, the village was just across there was like an area, and they'd walk through there. And we popped ambushes there a lot.
Yes, we did.
Didn't always get something, but sometimes we did. And I thought to my mind, why aren't they smart enough to know that when they walk through here, they get shot at? But apparently it didn't click or something. And the first time for me is when we popped an ambush and I was carrying M79. And I remember they just said, just shoot, just don't worry about it, just keep shooting. And illumination, I think it came from our mortar unit in Crockett, and that popped overhead, and one of them was running away from the other ones, and all I did is I just shot, and it hit right behind him, right at his feet. And of course he went ass over tea kettle, and guys were going, oh man, did you see that? Yeah, oh, that's great, and I went, wow. I think it hit his Achilles, the Achilles area, and he went down, and then the illumination went away, and then it came back, and so in the firefighting, and unbeknownst to me, there was like a village, not the captain, the chief, the village chief, and what he had was a couple of NVA advisors with him, and we got one of the NVA advisors, and that was the very first time for me in Vietnam that I knew that I'd caused somebody to die, which was a horrible thing, and secondly, it was the first time I became aware that there were other people besides BC fighting us.
Right.
In other words, now we've got professional soldiers from North Vietnam with us here, and that was a wake-up call, because that was a different deal. VC was one thing, NVA,
With gear, pith helmet,
well
action.
well equipped,
Well equipped.
and by the way, well trained.
Oh, yes.
They were very formidable, as you'll recall. The NVA were pretty tough guys. So that was for me. So you were there, so I guess that would qualify the first time somebody got hurt or killed was the enemy. But I'm thinking more in terms of one of our guys.
I thought that's what you meant.
Yeah.
That's why it took me, I had to think about who was the first one of our guys that we actually, I know that probably was someone that tripped a booby trap,
I think you're right.
That would be my guess who it was. I can't recall, but I'd like to tell your son a story about that same place.
Yeah.
Just a minute ago, John was talking about these latherite pits where we used to go, and they kind of mined for gravel in that area. They used the soil in that area for making, not actually bricks, but for making, in a village, you might have a place where you wanted to put the livestock, so they build these mud walls, and that particular soil was perfect for
It was
them.
kind of a quarry.
It was a quarry.
Yeah.
And so we were there a number of times, like John said, but I always try to remember a few humorous things. One was, one night we were there, some VC were only about 100 yards from us. And they had it was middle of the night, they must have had a 60 millimeter mortar. And they had some black material. We kept seeing that mortar, boom, boom, and hear it go off. And Crockett Fire Base is getting mortared with a little small 60 mortar, but it would glow purple. Every time that mortar would flash, you'd see this purple. And we figured out later that it was like black cloth that they had put up so you couldn't see the mortar flash. And we kind of giggled at one another going, Crockett's getting mortared, and here we are sitting out here, and I don't know why we didn't interdict or go do something with it. I really don't remember. Glover didn't want us to move. Nope, we're staying put right here. Maybe they'll come back by. Well, that's one little story about that we thought was kind of humorous because we weren't on the receiving end. And another night we were there, Big John was rear security in the back, him and maybe one other guy. He was probably on, you usually try to get a little bit of shut-eye while the other guy would be on guard for an hour, and then it was your turn. John was with his poncho liner over him. We had big movement out in front of us, 10, 15, 20 bodies at least coming along, and it's raining. It's kind of a downpour, and I'm in Glover's position, and Sergeant Glover loved to carry this 90 recoilless rifle out on an ambush if it wasn't too far to carry it out of the fire support base. And Glover saw those. I was on guard duty at our position, and it was raining, and I had my poncho liner around me. Lightning again. And goes, oh my gosh! I woke Glover up. He says, "Get that 90 recoilless ready." and so he set up with that thing. I'm going, is he really going to fire this thing? It's a nasty weapon, and it has blowback out the back. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're within 20 to 30 feet of it, you probably could lose your life. You know, so I mean, it's a weapon you don't want to walk behind when it's firing. We only had maybe 3 people in this position down there and another group there. And Glover fired that thing when they got right in front of us. And I didn't get the backstory. The backstory come out in the morning. John's lying there totally in his cocoon with his poncho liner. And when that 90 recoilless, they were back there about 50 feet or so. The poncho liner went boom, and he said, "I thought it was the end of the world." It was gone from him. He thought, you know, there was going to be somebody right over top of him or whatever. We talked about that for days.
Yep, that's true. I'm going to remind you of an incident that happened. And it was the night that they trucked us down the highway, and they let us all out, and it was still daylight, so anybody anywhere could see us, what we were doing. And they said we were going to go set up an ambush, which we did. We walked off the road a little ways, and then it started getting dark, and we waited until it got dark, and then we moved into our position on line. We were all on a line in kind of the bamboo stuff, not real thick, but bamboo. And then that night is when Eichner from a LP, some way with a crew serve starlight scope, saw 5. Go ahead, take it from there.
I remember that well. And actually, I was in rear security that night. And you guys were all up on the front. And there was 5 VC walking down the rice paddy dikes. That was a big ambush, and I was not involved in it. Not at all, because we stayed in our
You were
position.
in the back, yeah.
We were in the back, and it was kind of shocking, because the next morning, everyone, we were still gathered there, and they sent a photographer out, and I remember these guys going out after the initial ambush. There were still 1 or 2 out there, and 2 or 3 guys went out after them and got them.
That was one of the scariest nights of my life.
Yeah, I remember you were the man, and
And you know the guy that I got it was unbelievable, because they made us drag all the bodies back and pile them up.
Yep, they did.
And then they trip flared them. And what do you do? How do you take a dead body and drag it to where you're going to pile them up? You're not going to carry them, dead weight, you're not going to do that. So you just reach and get their feet and drag them behind you.
like a rag doll.
And so when I got my guy there, he wasn't a Vietnamese. His face was real round, real chubby. It was a Chinese advisor.
I don't remember that.
It was a Chinese military advisor that was with those guys. And I thought, there was another wake-up call. Who are we fighting here?
Yeah.
This isn't an NBA. This is a Chinese guy. And so that was another one of those moments, where you thought, and then of course they trip flared the bodies, so that if they tried to come in and get them, do you remember what happened the next morning when apparently everybody forgot that there was a trip flare on that pile?
No.
Somebody ran, because the chopper's coming in with the major and his photographer, and somebody yanked the top body off. Jamie told us to line them up, and the trip flare went off. And of course, you're not going to reach in there and grab a trip flare, right, and push it off. So as it heated up, these bodies where the wounds were started bleeding. The blood became thin and bleeding, and it was a bizarre, the smell of the burning flesh was bizarre anyway. Somebody finally got a stick and knocked it off, and then we lined them up. Do you remember anything about when the major came in?
No, because I keep jumping ahead to the next night.
I know, but I'll tell you what happened. This guy got off his loach with his photographer. He had just broken starch. His boots were spit shined, where you could see yourself in them from 25 feet away.
Yep.
And Jamie went out there and met him, and he said, I want to see the bodies. And that guy walked over where they're lined up, and the photographer's taking pictures, and the guy knelt down, and he told one of the guys, give me your M16, and he sat there with an M16 and posed with these bodies, which of course all of us that were there, that just set us off. I mean, that was just like the worst thing in the world. And then a lot of backstory here. Then the major wants to talk to us, and Jamie said, get in formation. And everybody looked at each other and said, what? We don't, what do you mean formation? And he got mad at us, because he goes, hey, the major, he wants to talk to you. And so we just kind of got up there and hung around. There was no formation, but it was the best that Jamie was going to get. And so then the major starts in about, what a victory, he was going through all this BS, and all of a sudden Doc Turner walked straight to him. Do you remember this?
No, I remember the other part, but I don't remember
Doc Turner,
the whole thing.
Doc Turner walked straight to the guy, locked his heels, saluted him, and said, "Sir, we would like to award you for as a result of this battle." And he went like this, and the major put his hand out, and Doc dropped 2 ears in his hand. You don't remember that?
No, sir.
Now, none of us knew. I mean, we didn't know what Doc was up to. We saw what happened, and immediately all of us thought we're dead. I mean, we're all going to be court-martialed and everything. This guy looked at those, looked around, and put them in his pocket.
Oh my gosh.
And
Don't think he's home.
he didn't say another word, no more speeches. He just hustled back, him and his photographer got on the loach and went back. And Jamie was speechless. He never said a word to Doc. He never said another word to us. We just got up, hiked back to the highway, and got on trucks and went back. No, we had to load the bodies up on the trucks. We took them to the center of the village, laid them out, put Wolfhound crests in the foreheads and ace of spades in their hands. And that was another horrible, horrible experience for me, because I was brought up where desecrating a body was a sin.
Right.
I mean, you know, and one of the old guys, I think it was Lee Ketchum, said, "Well, this is our calling card. This is what we do." Then they know you mess with a wolfhound, and this is what you're gonna wind up like.
Yeah.
So it was a psychological warfare thing, and I'll never forget that as long as I live. Then we went back to Crockett. Well, unbeknownst to you and I, Captain Eichner felt so good about what he'd done the night before, he thought he'd do it again. And he said to us the next night, to the exact place, on trucks, unloaded us, and Sergeant Hannah, Glover stayed in, Hannah took us out.
That's right.
And Hannah was smart. And he said, "We're not setting up in the same place. You never set up in the same place twice." So where we had been set up over here, he was going to take us to the opposite side and set us up over there. And of course, you know, tell us what happened as we were going out.
Well, it went against everything we were ever taught in, basic or infantry school. You don't go back to the same place, the next day. You don't do the same thing over again. They took us down the highway in the middle of the late afternoon. We walked back into the place, and we took up a position, everybody separated, a holding position to wait for it to get good and dark. And I know that everybody on that ambush that afternoon was thinking, this is not right, we shouldn't be here, we should not be here. And you're just saying, well, get dark early, hurry up and get dark so we can, get back together we were all spread out. And we got ambushed. And we lost our E6.
That was Hannah.
That was Hannah. And I remember
Claymore Larson got wounded. Clement Todd. And they were on your side where you were at.
well, what happened with me was that the first RPG, they ambushed us with not with weapons fire, but with an RPG.
Yep.
They were just continually shooting RPGs into our group. And what I did was I took off on a dead low crawl. The first one went right over, like about a foot up, and went right over. And that was the one that went into the group where Sergeant Hannah was. The next one landed kind of near, closer to us. At that point, it was getting dark. I would say it was about maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, maybe a little later. Wasn't dead dark yet, though. At that point, I said, I'm going that way, right towards them. And I took off on my, just crawling, like a fast low crawl. And I said, I'm not gonna take another one of these. I am gonna go find those guys. And I took off as fast as I could go. My steel pot fell off, and I got up there. I got up within about 40, 50 yards from them guys. And I saw the next one go off, and when it went off, it illuminated their position. And I took them out. No more RPGs.
And behind you, total chaos was going on. Guys were yelling for medic. I mean, it was total, there were guys hurt. We got one, Doc Turner came over and I was with Hannah and
They're trying to stop the bleeding because he was missing most of his.
well, a piece went, what killed him was a piece went through and it was a sucking chest wound.
Okay.
And, well, I was the one that, I remembered my training, the plastic deal and then the pad. And when Doc got there, I said, it's a sucking chest wound, because I heard it and I reacted.
Yeah.
And Doc says, well, turn him over. And he cut his shirt and he opened it up and there was a hole coming out about that bad. And Doc looked at me and he said, he ain't gonna make it.
Yeah.
And I was terrorized and I said, what do I do? And he said, just hold him and tell him he's gonna make it, everything's gonna be okay, and the dust-off's coming.
Yeah.
And that's when he took his last breath.
Yeah.
And then Ray was behind me, and Ray and I were the ones that put him on the chopper. But at that point, I went brain dead.
Yeah, because he's our platoon leader.
Well,
He's
everything that was going on with you and the other guys and Doc, was running one way to the other because guys were wounded. Guys were hit with shrapnel. And I was like, and Ray and I just were speechless. Really, we couldn't say anything. And then when the medevac came, we picked him up and took him and put him on the chopper.
Yeah.
But that was one of the times that I was, I couldn't think, so I didn't even know what was going on. I didn't know anybody was getting wounded, or all I knew is what had just happened right here. So that was a bad night.
on the way out, I'm all over Larson. He's got Cokes, 2 or 3 in each pocket. And he's walking along, and it sounds like somebody was going out on a picnic, right? These pops in his side pants. I'm going, Larson, what are you doing? We're on ambush. He says, well, we got to have something to drink out there. I said, get those things out of your pants. Well, when one of those RPGs hit, and Larson's screaming, I'm hit. And I rolled him over and I'm looking at him. I said, you're not hit. The Cokes exploded in his pocket and his whole pants were wet. I figured the whole thing out. I'm going, you're not hit. That's those Cokes. They're spewing all over. He felt that warm. They weren't cold. They were warm pops, soda cans. And I'm going, you're fine. That's the. I guess one of the things that's I've always tried to find something humorous, that I really remember, like the poncho liner, like that. I'm going, Marston, you're fine. And that's when another one went over, and that just infuriated me because I heard the screaming, and I'm going, these guys are going to just take us all out.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I thought that this was it.
Yeah.
And who were your closest buddies?
You and, well, I love the New York guys.
Galley.
Cuccini, Eddie Fry, Paul Naso, Rick Galley. There was one more. They were humorous because they had a whole different type of upbringing. And so I wasn't really that close with them, but we had a pretty tight platoon. Second platoon,
Yeah, we were.
we really were.
So, having said that, what did you feel like? What did it feel like when the realization came that Hannah got killed that night? The next morning, when we were back at Crockett, I know what I did. I went and got in. I sat down and I just stayed by myself. I didn't. What were you feeling?
Well, that's an experience where when your leader is taken out, you feel extremely vulnerable because you look up to certain people. Like I always looked up to you because I knew Big John was going to take care of me. I always felt that comfort. I used that and the person that used to really take care of me, even from day one, was Wascom.
Oh yeah, Joe, Big Joe. Yep.
He acted like he was my best friend. I'm going to show you what to do. Don't worry about that. Come on over here.
With Sheila.
Yeah, the monkey. Yeah, he was a...
Let's talk about a couple of other shootouts that you and I were involved with. Let's talk about the time that they told us to get all of our gear and they were gonna take us out and land us next to the Vam-Ko-Dong River. And we were gonna be a blocking force. And Delta was on the other side and they were gonna come this way. And theoretically, they were gonna run out and we were just gonna pick them off. Tell us about that day. Because Jamie decided we're gonna get over on that side of the river.
Well, we had a new lieutenant, and he was pretty green. And Eichner ordered our platoon across the river. And we did not want to go there because it was fairly wide, had big muddy banks. And we really didn't know what was over there, but we had a good idea because the location we were in was famous for having it. We knew it was NVA that we were going to be up against. That's what we felt about it because of the infiltration routes but we didn't know how well set up they were in that area. And they sent us across that river, and I know we were complaining like a bunch of babies. We don't want to go over there, and we kind of, I don't know, drug our feet, let's put it that way. Someone swam across and took a rope.
And I can't remember who did that. I've thought about that many times, I can't remember.
And when you're in the river, the bank is probably 5, 6, 7 foot tall, so you can't even really see what's there. And the whole platoon went across in the river like you see a river crossing with your gear and your 16s up here on your back. At that point in time, Jamie had commandeered me into being his RTO. So I'm a guy my size and I'm carrying the Prick 25 on my back plus all my other gear. So we get across and it was a big cluster over there. Well, let's get up on the bank and go that way. So I'm admire the enemy because they let us get up on that bank and get all in a nice little perfect line and start heading down the top of the dike that way, top of the bank of the river. But we didn't even go 30 feet before they opened up on us with everything. And we just dove back into the river. And we knew that Eichner and everybody else is on the other side, way below the height, and they weren't receiving anything. Everything was going right on over. And so I'm the RTO, and Eichner calls And he's telling me, he said, you tell Lieutenant O'Brien that I want you to make a full frontal assault on that position. You know, I mean, there's madness going on. Larry Lemire is sitting, we're all down behind the, on the riverbank, and Lemire is sitting up there with the 60, just sitting on the bipod, sitting there and just working down that hedgerow, like about 75 yards to our front. And we're screaming, get down. I don't remember. Somebody finally grabbed him. He put another belt in. I don't know where his ammo guy was. And he's just, that 60's ready to melt down. And somebody pulled him down off we can't lose our machine gunner. He's sitting up there just going mad with that 60. So got him down off there. They want us to assault these, full frontal assault across that open area. And I'm going, Jamie's going, he's making plans. I told him, Eichner, and so you talk to him. And so he asked for a little bit of advice from a couple of guys. The lieutenant does. Well, what do you think? We're not going. We're not doing that. And, well, we've got to do it because he said so. Somebody came up with the idea. I don't know. It could have been me. I said, you tell him we need resupply. We've fired up. We were up every so often. We did use up a lot of ammo, but we didn't get it. We didn't get anybody hit. And I said, you tell him, or I called him on the horn and said, we've got to have resupply. We've got to have some more M79 rounds because they probably were pretty much expended by that time because this guy's very fast with the weapon, shooting it straight up this way, lofting them in there. And we really did need more machine gun ammo, this and that, so we're stalling for time and waiting to see what's going to happen. You know, and I really don't recall if we got gunships in there or what.
Phantoms eventually.
Yeah, Phantoms.
But we had to get back.
Yeah, this company, John wants me to talk about the one.
Now, I was gonna ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Over the different years, I've heard the story of Larry Lemire and how, you know, he was very, he did not care. He was very unreserved about his service and, you know, like, that particular day, I've heard over and over that he took that 60 and he shot at the helicopter. Is that?
No, that's a different.
That's different.
Yeah.
But he did do that, but that, I was wondering if that was the same, because you didn't mention that he shot the helicopter.
Well, Larry is
That's an entirely different story.
It is, but Larry's the exact kind of guy that you want on a 60 because he's not afraid to use it, you know?
Yeah.
And that thing is just vicious.
Yeah.
I think the word you were looking for is unconventional.
Yeah, okay.
He was unconventional. So let's get to the good part.
Well, we had to get back across the river, and by now it's nightfall or darn close to it. And I don't know, it's late afternoon because we were over there for all the fireworks on that side of the river and all of I mean, when those guys are working, anyhow, so the same rope is still there, and I'm probably mid-pack going across, and I lost grip of the rope. It, like, my hand slipped off, and with all the weight on me, I was like, phew! I found the bottom. I think it was maybe 12 foot deep, 10, 12, 13 foot deep. I hit the bottom, and I'm going, Bob, you've got to get this radio off your back. I tried going back up the first time, and I finally got to the surface, got another breath, and went down, hit the bottom of the river, and I'm trying to get that prick 25 off my back. And because I had it mounted on a rucksack and a bunch of stuff, a big belt around it, and I couldn't get it off my back. And finally, the third, fourth time down, it was, this is your last chance. And I popped, I finally got it, broke loose, and it fell off my back, and I got up, got another breath of air, and went down. And I had taken on a lot of water. And I can remember sitting on the bottom of the river going, well, this is really a stupid way to die in Vietnam, drowning. And actually, it was sort of a little bit of an out-of-body experience because all of the events of my life flashed through my brain, just like scenes, I can't even describe it because, and I felt like maybe I was gonna leave, you know. The wonderful thing is that being totally full of water in my lungs, I said, well, I got a minute or two here. But all these things were going through my vision. I could see pictures of when I was a kid, just, and
Several years later, you told me you just accepted it.
yeah, I did.
You just,
And I've told people, friends and everything, all through my life that, you know what, dying is not hard. It's not hard at all because you reach a point where, hey, everything's going to be okay. You know, it was like, I thought I would be afraid of drowning like in the ocean or whatever. And it's really, this is going to be really great. I felt like, wow, I cannot wait to see that all fear was gone. All fear was gone, and I'm going, this is going to be okay. And it was very exhilarating, but I knew I was going to die. And then this big, right on the back of my, I felt something tug me up. It tugged me again like I was, and it was Big John. And the radio was laying on, my 16 was on the bottom of the river, my steel pot, everything. And he kept hollering at me, you're going to be all right, you're going to be all right. And he swam to the other bank over there and drugged me up and turned me over, and water was coming out and I was choking. And the funny part about this one is Harry Eichner, the platoon, the captain, his first tour, he was 101st Airborne. He's a captain. Eichner's a small guy like me, tough. We did respect him because he knew his stuff. He goes, well, where's the radio? And John swore at him, and I won't say what John said to him. He says, I'll go get the doggone radio. And he swam back out there about midstream and went down, and pretty soon drug that up and threw it down. And he went back out again and got my 16 and my steel pot. And everything just went back to normal. Everything went to normal, but what an experience it was. I've thought about it a lot, and thank you, brother. Thank you.
let's take us to another experience where you and I almost bought the farm, so to speak. They were sending us out on a lot of night ambushes, and they were sending us in Delta Company. And I'm just going to let you take it from there. One night when we were headed out.
Well, Jamie never was very good at on the map, knowing where we were. I always worried about him because he should be better at that, you know, than I am. And but this night we didn't realize the trouble that we were really in. Was that Fire Support Base Jackson?
Yes.
Yeah, we were working out of Jackson, a brand new fire base we built with our own hands. And big rice paddy dikes that you could walk down. And we were making way, we supposedly knew where we were going. I was not an RTO at the time. I'd gotten rid of that.
You never carried the radio ever after that river deal. That was
Oh.
that was the end of
Oh,
your,
I forgot that. I didn't know that.
you were that was the end of your career.
I guess so. That's right. I never thought about that.
That was the-
All right. Well,
And he wore a life jacket for 3 months.
we had probably 10 or 12 guys that night, and we didn't know the area that well. That's part of
I
it.
remember Big Joe was walking point.
At some point, they stopped our forward movement. Everybody gets down. We've got something to this effect. Delta Company has movement by their ambush. We want you to hold up and see what's going to transpire, you know. We were there for 15 or 20 minutes and we're complaining. We're goofing around, talking to one another. And the word comes back, all right, we're moving out. We're moving out. Everybody got up. We didn't walk 20 feet. And there was a hedgerow, 75, 80 yards right there to this side, and open rice paddies this way. Well, we were Delta Company's ambush. They thought that we were BC or NBA. We were totally in the wrong place. And only because talking to the machine gunner, their machine gunner, he tried to beg the platoon leader not to open up, these are GIs. And he said, no. And so when the 60 opened up on us, he fired high and the rounds, he broke the ambush. All of the rounds went above us. We all dove on that side of the dike. And it was like, and it became a firefight.
Yep.
Because pouring rounds back and forth at one another. And what happened that froze everybody's, before that, gotta back up one step, because the funniest thing that I ever saw was somebody over in that ambush had a claymore set up pretty good. And they had it back from the dike, aimed up a little bit. If anybody's walking down there, they had that claymore all set up. And there was claymores going off, but when this went off, it was right, John and I were right together in the line. And it went boom, and I felt all this dirt fly, and I goes, holy smokes, do they have a mortar or something? This was big. And I looks over to see if John's okay, and he's totally covered in dirt. I mean, there's a big hole in the bank. It blew the whole bank over on John. And I see this, he's going, and I'm going,
Maybe not quite that much.
I don't know, I'm over-exaggerating. But he's totally buried in dirt, and I'm digging trying to get him out, and there's people still firing, and then all of a sudden, an illumination round hit. From like maybe a 4-deuce mortar or something, a big illumination round hit, and everything went silent. They realized, just like we did, they ordered the illumination round for their ambush site,
Sure.
and everybody went, we're on the same side here. And at that point, a bunch of us stood up and started screaming at them.
Very, very bad.
Very bad, out in the middle of nowhere.
Even Bob, who would never say a bad word, said some bad words at me.
Did I?
Oh, yeah. So, let me ask you this. Did you ever take an R&R?
I did.
And where did you go?
I went to Hong Kong.
Okay. And was that pretty interesting, or
Well,
what?
it was because people live right on top of one another. You know, Hong Kong is a huge city, don't know the population, but everybody lives this way.
True. I went there too on mine.
Did
And the
you?
thing that I remember is all the clothes hanging out,
That's it.
and then they would dump water
Yeah.
and stuff out. You left us at a point later on after we'd been through so much stuff, and you got a job in Cu-Chi. Tell us a little bit about that.
There was a school in Cu-Chi Base Camp, mostly designed for infantry guys to take a week off, 5 days off out of the field, and it was called Lightning Combat Leadership Course, LCLC. And when my turn came to go there, I was ecstatic because it's 5 days out of the bush, you know, and you get to sleep in a barracks on a cot, you know, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to go to this place. When I got there, I saw the structure of how they did everything, all the classes that they were giving us, and I decided that I was going to try to get the best score that anybody had ever got. I'd ask a few questions. How does this work? Well, there's, you know, 100 points every day for this.
Yep, that's right, I remember that.
So my goal was to pay strict attention, because you're going to pick up some good stuff from these guys, you know, from the instructors. You're going to learn how to call in gunships. I mean, on and on and on and on. And at the end of the week, I scored well, and no one had in the years that they'd had that going, a couple of years that they'd had that going, no one had that good of a score. There was a so they took me aside just after the graduation ceremony, which was an interesting thing, the graduation ceremony, because the people that came, they did this on a weekly basis. So they asked me if I'd ever thought that I would like to be an instructor, and I said, well, yeah, why not? I can do this. And so they said, well, we'll see what we can do about that. And I wound up getting the opportunity to go there and be an instructor in the base camp. The only bad part of that job was about once every second week, you had to do the ambush classes on the fourth or fifth day. I don't really recall how long it was, but you had to do the ambush classes and take all these guys that you don't know. They'd split it into two groups. Outside the wire, Cu-Chi Base Camp, on a real ambush.
Yep.
Because some of them some of them were actually cooks and clerks to fill up the school. They weren't all infantry guys, so you learned real quick to pick out which guys were 11 Bravos, and you spent the whole day teaching the ambush class, and then that night you take the ambush outside the main wire, a click or two out. So it was a very good offline job, and it was the kind of thing where you had certain regrets about leaving your guys. They're out there still doing the thing, you know, and you're in here. So there's a bit of remorse about that, but I just decided I'm going to teach these guys everything that they need to know so that they might do better out there. So it was a great place to be.
Now, I'm going to correct the record, and I'm going to tell you guys the real story. The only reason he got that job is because you were the only infantryman in Vietnam that used blousing rubbers and bloused his fatigue pants. Only one in the entire country. And when they saw that, they said, you know, when a guy blouses his rubbers, he's got to be right.
I understand where you're going with that.
Do you remember how we used to get on you about unmerciful?
Yeah, well, I had a thing that I lived by out in the boonies. I always kept like a pair of fresh fatigues.
Yeah.
Because I was so little. I wore 27 waist, 27 shorts.
And those were hard to come by.
Yeah, when they'd put a pile of clean stuff there for the infantry guys to go dig through to get you some clean clothes, I kept the ones I had, and because otherwise I was like, I couldn't keep them up or anything like that. So I did that, and I always did put my pant legs inside my boots because of the leeches.
No, you use blousing rubbers. I'm not gonna let you get away with it.
Did I really?
Yes, you
Oh,
did.
okay.
Now, there has been made mention that there were a couple tools that you had that were very valuable. You know, you mentioned your M16, but everybody keeps talking about your comb. They talk about,
Gosh,
I was actually not gonna bring it up.
That's okay. It's true.
and his wife said, "Oh my God, she always has it."
Yeah, basically. I don't know you're dating.
Well, you know, this goes back to old TV. 77 Sunset Strip.
Oh, yes, oh, sure.
Kooky,
Sure.
lend me your comb.
Sure. No, those were two distinct quirks that you did have.
Oh, yeah.
No question
I
about
still
it.
do today.
So, comes time, somehow or another we survive 12 months, and we get the ETS orders, and lo and behold, you and I hook up, leaving Vietnam, right there, because you got a picture of where we were, where we were coming out and getting ready to get on the planes. And I'm just curious, when you got on the plane, what were you thinking at that time?
I don't know, it's probably in a way, I mean, we could have extended 50, 51 days or something and got that early out.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking people were going, no, when it comes my time, I'm going.
That was my philosophy too.
Me too.
So we get home. What was it like when you first got home?
Oh, it was ugly. It was ugly because I remember landing in California and it seemed like everybody that was in that airport, you see these military guys coming along, and right away they're against you.
Mm-hmm.
And we had no idea that kind of thing was really going on. We expected something totally different. A few pats on the back or something. Hey, good job,
Yep.
whatever. And no, in fact, I got spit at in the airport. And I went, wow, what's going on in this country?
We didn't know, did we?
No, we had no idea.
We had no clue what was going on.
No.
So, you got home. Life wasn't normal. Obviously, it wasn't exactly normal.
No.
But you knew you had to go forward. So, what did you pursue as far as a career?
I took my job back at the tool and die shop that I had been working at in Lake Orion. I went there almost immediately, a couple of days later, got my job back because I was now home. I had a wife. I needed a paycheck, and I was happy to go back there. I mean, the elation about being back in the world, like we called it, I'm back in the world now. The simple, basic things of life were all that was important, Didn't care if you went to didn't have to go do anything special.
Our
Home was-
expectations weren't high. So, let me ask you this. What's your definition of a hero?
Just a guy that does his job that he's been trained to do.
Okay. Did you ever know any heroes in Vietnam?
Yeah. Yeah, I was surrounded by them. Glover, I mean, we all looked up to him. He was our hero. And in the same respect, so were the guys that, like you were always my hero, for sure, because I always felt safe when I was with you. I always felt safe, like John and I will get through this.
Yep. And it
So-
seemed like longer the guys had been there, the more heroic they seemed to us.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just for the fact that they lasted, out there. Let me ask you this, what does the American flag mean to you?
Well, it's everything to me because it's been flying for all these centuries now, you know, and I guess I went there because it was the right thing to do. I thought it was the right thing to do. I got drafted like everybody else. I didn't try to dodge the draft. I thought, well, if this is what they say we should do, I'm game. And the flag is every bit of a part of that, that what you feel inside of you.
Well, I just
Sure.
off script for a minute.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a very serious question, and if you need a moment to think about it, but you said something that shook me up. You said, Lord, if you get me through this. And you said, I asked you if you kept your word, and you said you did. What do you think every veteran needs to know about eternity? If you could tell another veteran, now some veterans might listen and some might not, but after everything you went through, what should every veteran know about eternity, and what would you, if you could tell some people watching the importance of eternity, what would you say to them?
Well, I believe everything within me shows me that there is the other side, and it's there waiting for all of us, for every person that's on the face of the earth, and people need to make that decision. They need to search themselves and find the pathway is clear. It's clearly been laid out for centuries and centuries and centuries. And Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. And I am so happy. That's actually, to me, that's why I was happy that I got to go to Vietnam, because that made me see life at a level that most people don't ever get that opportunity to see life and death and to be faced with it every day. And when you see life at that level, you know there's got to be, there is something more, and that time is well spent if you make the right choices, you know. It has made all the difference in my life.
Did you ever struggle with PTSD or night terrors or flashbacks when you got home? Did you ever have those issues?
No, not at all.
One of the last things I want to ask you, now I mentioned earlier in the very beginning that these interviews are going to be up on our website for 100 years, and next generation. I want you to just look into the camera, and I want you to give your best advice for those people watching. What would your advice be for them?
Well, to love your fellow man. Because over there I saw, I had such, I felt love and compassion for these poor people that were caught in the middle of two opposing forces. And because if we love one another, it takes away bitterness or envy. It takes away so many things if we just have love for one another. And I found that out about myself over there. I would ask myself, how can you feel that way about these kids? They're ready to, one of these kids might blow you up. Might, something like that. well, if that's meant to be, that's the way it's gonna be, but these kids are the future of this country.
Bobby, thank you so much for taking your time and driving down here. And it means the world, not only to me, but it's gonna mean the world to so many people. And thanks for everything you did in Vietnam.
Thanks, John.
Okay, buddy, thanks.
Mhm.